She was slapped for sitting in first class. Turns out she owns the airline. A white flight attendant slapped a black mother in first class and thought she'd get away with it. But Imani Brooks didn't yell. She didn't argue. She simply held her baby tighter, adjusted the blanket around his tiny shoulders, and stayed silent. It was the kind of silence that carried power, the kind that knew something bigger was coming. Moments later, the intercom crackled to life, and with it a voice that froze the cabin. "This is Victor Brooks, CEO of Horizon Airlines. You just hit my wife." In that instant, the air shifted. The woman they tried to shame now owned the skies they worked for. Where are you watching from? If you believe respect isn't earned by your status or your skin, drop your city in the comments, hit subscribe, and turn on that bell. Because this flight is headed somewhere they never expected. 30 minutes after takeoff at 35,000 feet above Georgia, the hum of Horizon Airlines Flight 728 was steady, almost soothing. The soft glow of cabin lights bathed the first-class section in quiet elegance. Linen napkins folded with precision crystal glasses aligned on trays, air-thick with lavender-scented luxury. Seat 3A held a moment far removed from luxury. Imani Brooks cradled her 6-month-old son, Cairo, against her chest, his tiny breaths warming the cotton of her blouse. She adjusted the muslin blanket around his shoulders, careful not to disturb his sleep. His fingers curled unconsciously against her collarbone. She kissed the top of his soft curls, her eyes calm, focused, grounded. But across the aisle, a storm was forming. Cynthia Rowe, Horizon's senior flight attendant, strode down the aisle like she owned the sky. Her uniform was impeccable navy blue, pressed within an inch of perfection, her blonde bun tight enough to stretch the corners of her face. Eyes sharp, smile tight. She didn't look like a woman who made mistakes. She looked like a woman who hated being questioned. Imani noticed the tension before the words arrived. Cynthia's lips were pursed, her pace too forceful for a routine check. The other attendants had moved gracefully. Cynthia marched. She stopped directly in front of Imani, towering slightly, the aisle light casting a hard shadow across her cheekbones. "Ma'am," she said, voice crisp like shattered glass. "We've had a few complaints about the noise." Imani blinked. "Excuse me, the baby," Cynthia clarified, glancing at Cairo as if he were a spilled drink. "You'll need to quiet him down, or—" Cairo stirred, letting out a soft coop. Not a scream, not a cry. A small coo, innocent and half asleep. Cynthia's eyes narrowed. Her hand twitched. Then in a motion so fast it stunned time itself, she slapped Imani across the face. A sharp, open-handed crack, skin on skin, audible, echoing, impossible to misinterpret. Gasps burst from passengers around them. One woman dropped her cocktail glass. A man in 2B jolted upright, eyes wide. Another fumbled for his phone with trembling fingers. For a moment, no one breathed. Imani's head had turned with the blow cheek blazing with fresh pain. But she didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She just turned her face back towards Cynthia, slowly, deliberately, and stared. Her dark brown eyes locked onto the attendant's face, unyielding. Her lips didn't move. Her arms stayed wrapped around Cairo. She didn't need to respond. Because the sky did it for her. A voice boomed over the cabin speakers. Smooth, deep, unmistakably male. It cut through the cabin like a knife. "Cynthia Rowe," the voice said. "You're finished." The blood drained from Cynthia's face. The faux authority melted from her spine. Her mouth fell open, the smirk she'd carried for years now, a twitching shadow. A passenger whispered, "Who said that?" Another murmured, "Is that the captain?" Imani didn't move. She didn't blink. Her face bore the sting of the slap, but her gaze held something stronger. A storm still gathering. Cynthia stepped back, stumbling slightly. Then the voice returned, calm, measured, and final. "This is Victor Brooks, CEO of Horizon Airlines," it said. "You just struck my wife." The cabin erupted, not in screams but in silence. A stunned, crawling silence that wrapped itself around every row. Every glance shot toward Imani now carried a different weight. Not pity, not curiosity, reckoning. Cynthia staggered a step, her eyes scanning the ceiling, then the passengers, as if looking for a trapdoor that might open and swallow her whole. Imani adjusted Cairo's blanket again, slowly, precisely. The faintest smile ghosted her lips. Not of triumph, but of something colder, calculated. The baby slept on, unaware of the fire he'd survived. And the woman who had lit the match, she was just beginning to feel the heat. Cynthia Rowe stood frozen in the aisle, her crisp uniform suddenly suffocating. The words still echoed in her ears. "You just struck my wife." Passengers' eyes bore into her, some narrowed in disgust, others wide with disbelief. Phones were raised now, cameras rolling. She was being recorded from every angle. She tried to laugh. That's not real," she stammered, her voice sharp, desperate. That was some kind of joke. A prank. Her hand fluttered upward as if swatting at invisible lies, but no one was laughing. The intercom cut in again, this time a different voice. Firm, commanding. "This is Captain Hayes. Cynthia Rowe, report to the galley immediately." The illusion of authority she'd worn like a second skin shattered. Her heels clicked back toward the galley, but the rhythm was wrong now, offbeat, unsteady. The aisle felt longer than it ever had in her career. As she passed Imani, she hissed low under her breath, "You think you've won? I'll fix this, you little—" Her words cut off, but the poison lingered. Imani didn't flinch. Her fingers pressed into Cairo's blanket just a touch tighter. She heard it, every syllable, but she refused to give Cynthia what she wanted. Fear, rage, anything resembling weakness. In the galley behind the curtain, Cynthia's composure crumbled. "She doesn't belong up here," she snapped at Captain Hayes, who stood in the narrow corridor with arms folded. "First class isn't for people with screaming brats." I was maintaining order. Hayes's voice was low but lethal. "You struck a passenger, the CEO's wife. You're lucky you're not in restraints." "I was provoked," she barked. "You're suspended," Hayes said flatly. "As of now." Cynthia's face flushed red. She turned away, pulling her phone from her apron. Her fingers flew across the screen. "Derek, I need spin. Now. They're trying to destroy me over a black woman with a baby. Victor Brooks' wife. This is war." In seat 3A, Imani rocked Cairo gently, the adrenaline from the slap still trickling through her bloodstream. Around her, whispers spread like smoke. "That's the CEO's wife." She didn't even raise her voice. A teenage boy across the aisle gave her a small nod of respect. A young Latina woman mouthed, "You good." Imani gave the faintest nod. It wasn't over. But something had shifted. The plane descended slowly toward Los Angeles. When it landed, the tension didn't. As passengers disembarked, Cynthia was nowhere to be seen. Imani stepped off, last Cairo bundled in her arms, her back straight. 2 police officers stood at the end of the jet bridge. "Imani Brooks," one asked. She stopped. "Yes, you're being detained. We've received a report of assault committed during the flight." Imani blinked. "Excuse me, I was assaulted." The taller officer didn't flinch. "We have a sworn statement from Ms. Rowe corroborated by a few passengers." He stepped forward, pulling out a tablet. On screen, shaky selective video. Imani's hand raised, mid-motion, mid-adjustment of her baby, angled to appear as though she were striking first. Cynthia flinching, the slap unseen, edited, cropped, deceitful. "That's not real," Imani said, voice firm but cracking. "She hit me. Ma'am, we'll need to ask you to come with us. You're not under arrest at this time, but we need to verify facts at the station." Cairo whimpered. One officer reached out. "We'll have someone from Child Protective." "No," Imani said, holding him tighter. From behind the terminal glass, Victor appeared, flanked by 2 Horizon security officers and a woman in a tailored Navy pantsuit. Avery Trent, his personal counsel. "What's going on?" he barked, stepping between the officers and his wife. "She's being taken for questioning," the taller officer repeated. "I'm calling a civil rights attorney in 60 seconds if you don't let her walk with her child." Avery raised her badge. "Counsel for the Brooks family. Your probable cause is non-existent. That video won't survive chain of custody scrutiny." A beat passed. The officers hesitated. Victor stepped closer, his voice quieter now but volcanic. "You arrest her. You'll be defending your badges in federal court. On video. Tomorrow." The officers relented. "She's free to go. For now." As Imani and Victor walked out, holding Cairo close between them, she whispered, "They're already rewriting it." Victor nodded grimly. "Then we rewrite it louder." The lights in the L.A. County holding cell flickered overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow over concrete walls smeared with years of grime. The cold metal bench dug into Imani Brooks' back as she sat, arms wrapped tightly around her waist where Cairo used to be. The echo of his cries, when a social worker had pried him from her arms, still rang louder than the slamming of the cell door behind her. Her cheek, once burning from the slap, now throbbed from cold neglect. Her wrists ached from the cuffs, her heart numb. Outside, Victor was moving mountains, but in here she was just another number, another black woman booked and processed while her attacker controlled the narrative from a motel suite filled with phones and press contacts. The guard at the front, broad bald with a sneer carved permanently into his face, stared at her through the bars. "The TV said you hit a flight attendant," he drawled. "Now you're a celebrity." Imani didn't respond. Another inmate, stocky and square-jawed, leaned against the opposite wall, eyeing her like prey. "That's the baby lady," she muttered to her cellmates. "From that racist plane video. The one they say faked it. I saw her live stream. She's lying," another said. "Clout chaser. Rich husband, poor attitude." The lies had soaked in deeper than she'd thought. Imani closed her eyes and focused on her breath, counted backwards, pictured Cairo's face, his soft skin, the way his fingers latched onto hers like she was his whole world. She didn't hear Simone Ray until she was sitting beside her. "You don't look like a liar to me," the woman said, voice low. Braids streaked with gray framed a face lined by time and fire. Imani turned slowly. "I didn't hit anyone. Doesn't matter. You black, she white. That's all some folks need to see." They sat in silence for a beat. Then Simone leaned close. "I saw your live stream," she said. "I believe you. And I've got ways of getting a note out." Imani stared. "A note. You got someone outside. Someone who can move." "My husband," Imani said. "Victor Brooks." Simone whistled low. "The Victor Brooks." Imani nodded. Simone's grin was thin and sharp. Then right fast. The stub of a pencil appeared, slipped from Simone's sock. A folded piece of receipt paper followed. Imani scribbled as fast as her shaking hands would allow. "Victor, I'm alive. They're planting lies in here. Cynthia's guard just dropped hints about drugs. They want to bury me. Please, get me out." Imani Simone tucked it away. "I'll get it to the gate. Might cost me a favor or two, but you're not dying in here." Before Imani could thank her, the metal door groaned open. 2 guards entered, faces like steel. "You. Come on," one barked. She stood slowly. "Wear cell check." Simone's eyes narrowed. "Bullshit." The guards grabbed her roughly and pulled her down a different hall. She didn't resist. Not yet. They led her to a smaller cell, shoved her inside, and slammed the door. Minutes passed. Then the bald guard returned. His hand dipped into his pocket and pulled out a small plastic bag, white powder glinting like snow in a nightmare. Imani's heart seized. "You dropped this," he said, tossing it onto the cot. "That's not mine," he smirked. "You're a user now. Tough break, Mrs. Brooks. I'm being framed." He leaned close to the bars. "Prove it." She screamed, loud, sharp. Her voice ricocheted off the walls. Another guard appeared. A third officer pulled out a phone and started recording. Not her screams, but the planted evidence lying mockingly on the mattress. Imani sank to her knees, the cold floor pressing into her bones. Somewhere above this hell, Victor was moving. She had to believe that. Had to trust he'd received her message, that Avery Trent was fighting through the legal knots, that someone still saw the truth. Back at Horizon's downtown LA headquarters, Victor paced like a storm trapped in a glass box. The note from Simone had made it to his hand 2 hours earlier, crumpled, smudged, but real. And damning. He slammed it down in front of Avery. "Find the footage. The unedited version. There has to be a backup. There's talk of a system-wide override the day after the flight," Avery said, "but we have access to maintenance backups on external drives. Working on it." Victor's phone buzzed. Another hate message. Another thread of threats against his wife and infant son. He crushed the phone in his hand like it was made of paper. Back in the jail, Simone returned that evening with news, her eyes lit with urgency. "Your man's holding a press conference tomorrow morning. Says he's found the footage." Imani's breath caught. "They're scared. I can see it in the guards now." "Scared men do stupid things," Simone said. That night, Imani lay on the cold cot, bruised and aching, but with the faintest thread of hope running through her chest. They could plant evidence. They could lie. But they couldn't erase the truth forever. The sun had barely set over Los Angeles when the quiet in Imani Brooks' neighborhood cracked like a fault line. At the end of her quiet cul-de-sac, headlights cut through the dusk like blades. Then came the chants, low at first, then swelling like a storm surge. No special treatment. Justice for Cynthia Liar welfare trash. Dozens of people, some waving hand-painted signs, some wearing trucker hats or dark sunglasses, clustered near the front yard of the Brooks residence. A live camera feed from a popular alt news channel beamed the scene out to thousands. On X, the hashtags trended like wildfire, #fake victim, #reinstate. Cynthia Rowe, Horizon CEO wife, lied inside the house. Danielle Brooks, Imani's sister-in-law, shut the blinds with shaking hands. She'd been staying there with Cairo while Victor worked day and night to free Imani. The baby stirred in the nursery, sensing the rising tension. Danielle peeked through the curtain. "Oh God," she whispered, heart pounding. They found the house. In jail, Imani pressed her ear to the cold cement wall. Somewhere far away, something felt wrong. A mother always knows. Outside, someone hurled a rock. It smashed through the front window with a thunderous crash, landing in the living room amid a shower of glass. Danielle screamed. Cairo cried. Victor was in the middle of a meeting with Avery when the alert hit his phone. Security breach, home perimeter. Glass broken. Crowd size 20+. He bolted from the room, his tie askew, phone to his ear. "Danielle, are you safe? Is Cairo okay?" They threw a rock. They're screaming her name, saying they want her arrested again. "I don't know what to do." Victor's voice dropped to a deadly calm. "Get him to the bathroom. Lock the door. Don't open it unless it's me or LAPD." A firework exploded on the lawn, sending sparks into the hedges. Back inside, Danielle fled down the hallway. Cairo bundled against her chest and locked herself in the main bathroom. She slid to the floor, her back against the tub, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. The dispatcher's tone was flat. "We've received multiple calls about a protest. Units are delayed. Stay inside. This isn't a protest. They're trying to burn the house down." Static. Then a click. Danielle dropped the phone. Outside, a bottle arced through the air, flames trailing behind it like the tail of a comet. The Molotov cocktail shattered against the porch, igniting instantly. The white siding of the Brooks residence turned orange in the blaze. Inside her cell, Imani sat bolt upright. Something inside her screamed. Her child was in danger, her house was in flames, and she was trapped in a cage while her world burned. On the street, a voice roared through a megaphone. "This is what happens when you lie." Victor's SUV screeched to a stop on the corner. He threw the door open, nearly ripping it off the hinges, and sprinted toward the crowd. "Move!" he shouted, pushing through protesters as smoke thickened. "My son's inside." Some jeered. One man spat at his shoes. But he didn't stop. He climbed the front steps, kicked open the half-charred door, and vanished into the burning house. Danielle heard the crash and the voice and flung open the bathroom door. "Victor," she cried, holding out Cairo. He took the baby, cradled him to his chest, and shouted, "Go out the back. There's no time." As Danielle fled through the smoke, Victor shielded Cairo and stumbled back down the hall. Flames licked the staircase. The kitchen glowed with firelight. Then, sirens. Too late, but still coming. 3 police cruisers arrived, not to arrest, but to contain. Not to protect, but to disperse. As firefighters doused the blaze and officers pushed the mob back with barking commands and batons, Victor stood on the lawn, shirt, scorched arms wrapped around his son. And then came the crackle of radio static. A call from within the jail. Captain Hayes' voice relayed to Avery and then to Victor. "The footage," he said. "We found the real footage. Off-site maintenance servers, Cynthia's slap, caught in full, the original angle, no edits." Victor looked toward the flames. His eyes didn't water. The fire couldn't reach him anymore. He had what he needed. "Release her," he said into the phone. "Now." Inside her cell, the guard approached Imani's door. No sneer this time, just keys. "You're being discharged," he mumbled. Judge Calhoun's office signed the release. Imani didn't smile, didn't cry. She just stood slow and steady and walked out without a word, leaving the concrete, the cell, and the smear campaign behind her. But she knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Imani Brooks stepped out of the Los Angeles County Jail at dawn. The world felt colder, sharper, like every breath had edges. Her bruises ached beneath her coat. Her wrists still bore faint red rings from the handcuffs. But she didn't stumble. She didn't pause. Because Victor stood waiting. Cairo was cradled against his chest, bundled in a soft gray blanket, eyes wide and sleepy. When he saw her, he reached out instinctively. And when she touched his tiny hand, the cold melted. "I've got you," Victor whispered, his voice catching as he wrapped them both in his arms. Behind them, news cameras clicked and flashed. The real footage had just gone live an hour earlier. Airline security video that showed everything: Cynthia Rowe slapping Imani, Imani never striking back. The raw, unedited truth finally public. And still the damage wasn't done spreading. At a seedy motel on the east side, Cynthia watched the footage play out on her cracked phone. Her face was pale, drained of the confidence she'd wielded for weeks. Her thumb trembled as she refreshed X. The trending tag had changed. Justice for Imani. Fire. Cynthia Rowe. She hurled the phone across the room where it struck the headboard and clattered to the floor. Ted, she barked into the burner phone. Say something. Her union rep's voice was unsteady. You need to disappear. It's over. They've got everything. The footage, the messages, the payments to that guard. I want her gone, Cynthia screamed. Ted went quiet. Then, there's one more option. Logan. He's done jobs for clients like you. Her eyes narrowed. I want him on her tonight. That night Victor didn't want to risk going back to their home, even what was left of it. He booked a secure suite at a private hotel on the outskirts of downtown. Tight surveillance. No press, no windows facing the street. I just need sleep, Imani murmured as she rocked Cairo in the hotel armchair. No threats, no cameras, just quiet. Victor kissed her forehead. You have it. At 1:17 a.m., the silence shattered. The car exploded. The blast rocked the windows, sending a shockwave through the hallway. Smoke poured upward. The entire north end of the parking lot was on fire. Victor grabbed Cairo and pulled Imani down as glass sprayed across the room. Stay low, he shouted, shoving the mattress up to cover them. Across the lot, a man in black ducked behind a dumpster. Logan Price, mid-40s, ex-military, emotionless eyes. He didn't flinch as alarms blared. He raised a suppressed pistol, took one step forward, then froze. Something was wrong, he could feel it. Inside, Imani's hands shook as she checked Cairo's limbs for injuries. He's okay, she whispered over and over. He's okay. Victor peeked through the shattered window. He caught movement. Get to the shed, he said. What the maintenance shed? By the alley. Go now. He kissed Cairo's forehead, passed him to Imani, and grabbed the lamp base, the heaviest object in reach. I'll buy you time. Imani didn't argue. She ran. Outside, smoke cloaked her like a veil as she darted across the lot, Cairo tucked tight to her chest. Her breath rasped in her throat. Her ribs burned from the pace, but she didn't stop until she reached the shed. Inside, rusted tools, coils of rope, a broken push broom. She wedged the door shut with a crowbar and sank to the ground, pressing her back to the wall. You're safe, she whispered to Cairo, her voice trembling. You're safe. But she wasn't. Outside, Logan moved silently, bypassing the fire crews, now distracted with the burning car. He scanned the windows, then saw the flicker of movement by the shed. He moved in. Inside, Imani heard the footfalls. She stood, wrapped Cairo tighter in the blanket and set him gently in the far corner. She picked up a wrench, breathing hard. I'm not afraid of you, she whispered to the dark. The door creaked. Logan kicked it open, and Imani swung. The wrench struck his wrist, knocking the pistol free. It skidded across the shed floor. He lunged, but she ducked low, ramming her shoulder into his ribs. They crashed into the workbench, tools clattering around them. Logan recovered fast, too fast. He grabbed her by the arm, slammed her against the wall. This isn't personal, he hissed. You came for my baby, she spat. And then Victor was there. He slammed into Logan from behind, dragging him off Imani and pinning him to the floor. The gun clattered again. Victor's forearm pressed into Logan's throat. You're done, he growled. Sirens wailed. Red and blue lights flooded the lot. Officers poured in. One kicked the pistol away. Another zip-tied Logan's wrists. A third officer opened Logan's jacket and pulled out a burner phone. The screen was lit. Incoming call, Cynthia Rowe. In the station hours later, Cynthia's world collapsed in real time. Footage from the hotel went viral, again. The attempted murder charge, the conspiracy, the manifesto she'd posted from a dummy account leaked by Ted after he flipped on her. Her mugshot hit the news, her hands in cuffs, her eyes wild with disbelief. Imani watched it all from a hospital bed, Cairo nestled beside her, Victor at her side. She's finally where she belongs, he said. Imani didn't answer. She stared at her son and whispered, It's not over. The sun rose sluggishly over Los Angeles, casting a dull orange hue over the twisted skeleton of what used to be Imani Brooks's car. Yellow tape fluttered in the morning breeze outside the hotel. The explosion had made the news, again. But not as a coincidence, not as an accident. It was now attempted murder. And the nation was watching. Inside the hotel's recovery suite, Imani sat propped against a stack of pillows, Cairo cradled in her arms. The baby slept soundly, one tiny hand curled around the string of her sweatshirt. Her bruises had darkened overnight, spreading like ink stains across her skin. Victor sat beside her, his left arm wrapped in gauze, a deep cut from Logan Price's blade, stitched but still raw. His other hand never left hers. "You know what today is," he said quietly. Imani nodded. "Press conference. They want you there." She turned her head, eyes steady. "No. They need me there." Victor exhaled. He knew better than to argue. The press swarmed the Horizon Airlines auditorium by midday. Cameras lined the back wall. Commentators on major networks speculated on what the CEO would say after the viral footage, the arrest, the explosion, the manifesto. When the lights dimmed, it wasn't Victor who walked out. It was Imani. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She wore navy slacks, a cream blouse buttoned to the collar, and no makeup. Every mark on her face, the faint imprint of Cynthia's slap, the bruise near her temple from the shed, was visible and intentional. She stepped behind the podium. No teleprompter, no script. "I was told I didn't belong," she said simply. "In first class, in freedom, in motherhood. And now apparently not in life." The room held its breath. "But I'm still here." Behind her, a massive screen lit up with 4 images. Cynthia Rowe's mugshot, the unedited slap footage, the firebombed car, a screenshot of the manifesto. "This was never about a seat on a plane," Imani said. "It was about who people believe has the right to occupy space to breathe without being questioned, to exist without permission." Cameras flashed. Pens flew. One reporter dropped her stylus. "I was slapped in public, arrested without cause, framed in jail, hunted with my child in my arms. And every time someone tried to call it an overreaction, a misunderstanding, a misstep, she looked straight into the lens. I call it what it is, hate weaponized." Victor stepped forward, then quietly, solemnly. "She was nearly murdered," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "So I'm stepping down," the audience murmured. "As CEO of Horizon Airlines," he continued, "I am handing the role to the woman who not only survived the unthinkable, but showed this company and this country what leadership truly looks like." Imani turned toward him slowly, her mouth parted, speechless. Victor smiled. "Imani Brooks is the new CEO of Horizon." The room erupted. Applause mingled with disbelief. A woman in the front row wiped tears from her eyes. Someone shouted, "About damn time." Imani stood still for a moment, not stunned, calculating. Then she stepped forward again. "My first act as CEO," she said, her voice calm but unmistakable, "is a permanent no-fly ban on Cynthia Rowe and anyone convicted of hate crimes or incitement against our passengers or staff." The applause deepened, this time thunderous. And across the city, in a jail cell rank with stale air and rotted ego, Cynthia Rowe watched it unfold. Her hands gripped the edge of the bench knuckles, white. The TV bolted to the ceiling replayed the press conference on loop. She threw her tray at it, spaghetti splattering the wall. A guard laughed. "She outranked you now," he said, walking off. Later that night, back at the hotel, Imani stood at the window. The city lights stretched endlessly, blinking in rhythm like an army of tiny eyes. Victor approached quietly. "You did it," he said. She didn't answer right away. Then, "No, I survived it. There's a difference." He nodded. She turned to him. "She'll find another way. That manifesto wasn't her final word. Then it's ours now." Imani looked down at Cairo, asleep in his crib, breathing steadily. "Smoke doesn't settle," she said. "It lingers. It marks what tried to burn you. And it reminds you, every time you breathe, of what you made it through." 1 month after the slap that had launched a national reckoning, Imani Brooks stood at the front of Horizon Airlines Flight 001. The jet sat on the tarmac under a cloudless Los Angeles sky. Inside, every seat in first class gleamed not from polish, but from something harder won: accountability. She wasn't flying today. She was announcing something. The seat where Cynthia Rowe had struck her, seat 3A, remained unassigned, unoccupied. A silent tribute to the moment a system cracked. The row behind it, however, was filled with press, cameras, microphones, eyes. Imani wore a tailored navy pantsuit. Her curls framed her face, no longer tucked back. No bruises, no shadows. She spoke without notes. "I didn't come back here for closure," she began. "I came back to claim what was always mine." Cameras clicked. She continued, her voice measured, unshaking. "This seat once became a battleground, not because of what I did, but because of who I was. A black woman, a mother, a first-class passenger." A pause. Not for effect, but for air. "They told me I didn't belong, then tried to erase me, then tried to end me." The room was silent now, even the air felt still. "But I'm still here." Behind her, the Horizon logo slowly dissolved on the presentation screen, replaced by a new emblem, a silhouette of a mother holding a child seated midair cradled by wings. The audience gasped. "This is the new face of Horizon," Imani said. "Not just the airline, the future." Victor watched from the back, Cairo balanced on his hip. The baby gurgled softly, tugging at his father's collar. Imani smiled just for a second. Then she turned back to the room. "As CEO, I'm implementing 5 immediate policies," she announced. 1 lifetime bans for anyone involved in bias-based violence or harassment on our aircraft. 2 anonymous real-time reporting tools built into every seatback screen. 3 mandatory training and bias recognition for all flight staff beginning with leadership. 4 a diverse hiring board for internal investigations. And 5, she held up a tablet, the uncut footage of my slap, of my arrest, of my exoneration, will live on Horizon's homepage, permanently. A reporter raised his hand. "Why show that? Doesn't it hurt the brand?" Imani's stare was cold and sharp. If the truth hurts your brand was a lie. At a federal detention center outside Sacramento, Cynthia Rowe saw the New Horizon ad for the first time on a wall-mounted TV during communal hour. It opened with a still frame of Imani's bruised cheek, then transitioned into her walking into the CEO press conference. The words "We belong here" faded in. Cynthia screamed, "Turn it off." No one listened. Even the other inmates had stopped rooting for her. Ted Walsh, her former union rep, was now in federal witness protection. Logan Price, the hitman, had flipped in exchange for a reduced sentence, and had testified in open court that Cynthia had promised a $50,000 bounty on Imani's life. There would be no parole, no reinstatement, no vindication, only silence. Outside the court system, the internet kept evolving. Imani's live stream from the shed, now titled "A Mother in the Fire," had reached 7 million views. Horizon's subscriber base soared. Activists cited her policies as the beginning of a corporate civil rights model. Other airlines scrambled to match her reforms. But Imani didn't celebrate. Not yet. There was still smoke in her lungs. Late one night in the quiet of her new office, she scrolled through hate mail. The death threats hadn't stopped completely. Some were crude, others legal-sounding, some anonymous, others brazen. She didn't delete them. She archived them. They were evidence, too. Victor entered, 2 mugs of tea in hand. "Still reading the poison?" he asked gently. "Still learning from it," she replied, sipping slowly. He sat across from her. "You've done it, you know. You didn't just survive. You rewrote the ending." She looked down at her desk. A framed still of Cairo sleeping in her lap on the day she was released from jail. The caption beneath it was from the live stream, "You came for the wrong mother." Her eyes misted. Then she smiled. "Not the ending," she said. "Just the start." The next morning, a flight departed from LAX with little fanfare, except for the crew manifest. A new all-female flight team, multiracial, multilingual, trained under Horizon's post-scandal academy. The plane taxied, lifted, and disappeared into the sky, leaving behind the old world. And in seat 3A, a laminated card. "This seat is permanently unassigned in honor of every voice silenced, every parent dismissed, every story rewritten without permission. May you never be told again that you don't belong." If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that speak truth to power. This story shows that unchecked cruelty, even when disguised as authority, will always lead to consequences, while quiet strength and unwavering dignity can turn injustice into a catalyst for real change. It reminds us that racism and bias are not relics of the past. They're still alive in our skies, our courtrooms, our neighborhoods. Such incidents still happen in places meant to be safe workplaces, schools, airplanes, anywhere someone decides another person doesn't belong. By practicing respect, accountability, and humility, we help build a more inclusive and just society, one where no one has to fight for the right to simply take their seat.